Hi, Shani. Thank you for joining, and good evening, everyone. I'll ask Shani to just introduce herself so that everyone understands or know like who she is and what she's doing.
My name is Shayani Banerjee. I did my bachelor's in zoology from the University of Calcutta. And then I moved to Germany in winter 2019. So that was the semester that I started in. And then I joined for my master's in experimental and clinical neuroscience. And then after 2 years now, since last year, I've been doing my PhD in developmental cognitive psychology. So that is why I think Mustafa contacted me, because I've had a very different, very unique trajectory of my academics, of pursuing my career in research. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here, and thank you so much for inviting me. I really hope whatever information, whatever knowledge I've gathered over the years helps everyone present here.
Yeah, even I think so. Actually, that was really interesting when I got to know like you pursued your bachelor in zoology, and then from there to clinical neuroscience, and from there psychology. Because yeah, so I thought like maybe to invite you and give like these students a perspective what they can do actually if they are from biology background and they want to come into psychology in later part of their career. So let me start with this. Being a kind of geology student, what are the different courses that you applied and how you decided, no, I want to do this?
I started off with zoology because I was always interested in biology in general. And then towards the end of my class 12, I thought that I want to do something in biology, but I wasn't sure which field of biology I would be interested in. So I took the most generic biology field that I knew I can do, which is zoology. And the good thing about, I think, going for a more general course in your bachelor's is that you get an experience in a lot of different fields, which is very necessary to build a foundation of anything that you want to do going forward. So when I did my zoology bachelor's, I had experience with cellular biology, evolutionary biology, animal biology, but I also had a lot of experience in cognitive biology and animal behavior and things like that. So when I was moving on to my third year, I realized that I had a specific interest towards experimental psychology. So that's when I thought this is something that I want to pursue further. And then I started applying for psychology masters and neuroscience masters in India. And it's a very tiring process. I'm not gonna lie. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of preparation, a lot of all India exams that you have to apply for. You have to really study hard. So I always had studying abroad as a higher priority, because I thought it would be much easier to get in to a foreign university. So then I started looking into German universities, or in general in Europe. And the main fields that I focused on was cognitive neuroscience, cognitive biology, experimental psychology, or just neuroscience masters.
Mhm.
Or I also applied for biology masters, but I made sure that those programs had different modules which will help me get into psychology later. So I think that is something that you have to keep in mind is just because a master's is generally called masters in biology, it doesn't mean that it will not have a psychology module. Because in Germany, it's very common that different universities have different syllabuses or different ways that they create their program. So it's very important to know what you're applying for. You can apply to multiple universities, into multiple programs within the same university as well. But you have to make sure that you agree with, or you are willing to study the different modules, and some give you the chance to choose which module you want to study. So I chose to study cognitive neuroscience as a part of my experimental neuroscience masters. So yeah, it was a lot of calculated decisions, but it's something that I chose to do and went forward with. And I think now I'm very happy with all the decisions that I made.
Thank you so much for sharing, and it's really interesting because I know like most of the students they apply for like whatever field that matching with their kind of subjects combinations, and then they finally choose okay which one is good. But for in your case, I just saw like you mentioned you mostly focused on uh, some subjects related to the neuroscience and
Yeah.
then came into psychology. That's really interesting because at like when you pursued a bachelor, at least you were kind of decided, no, I want to go in specific field. And I know like so many people, they can't make that decision even at their early 20s. uh,
Mhm.
but that's really good, like you made that decision and you are into this field. So next question would be, since you had zoology, and you also mentioned like there were some courses which were mostly related to neuroscience and these things. So did you perform some kind of additional courses or maybe internship or projects? Because I know when you applied for masters in Germany, then they look for the extracurricular activities. So internship it could be, or it could be some research papers or something like that, or some additional courses that you took. So maybe if you share your experience, what you did, and that actually helped in getting the admit for this course.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point because I don't know if Indian universities give this that much importance as much as German universities do, but it's very important for German universities that you don't only study your course, but you have things that you're doing on the side as well that help you with your program. So for me, for example, when I started to realize towards the end of my second year that I want to study psychology or go into a neuroscience-based psychology program, so then I started to apply for certification courses. By that, I mean certain IITs or IIMs, they have these online
Mhm.
certification courses that you
Mhm.
can apply for. So those are really good because you can do it on on just parallelly with your bachelor's program, and it's about a course of 2 or 3 weeks. So it's not that long, and then you have one exam that you give, and then you get a certificate that you have passed this course. And these there are different types, and you can do an introduction to psychology course, for example, or you can do an experimental psychology methodology course. I did three of these certification courses. I had a general psychology course. I had a statistical course, which is also very important for masters in Germany, is that you have a bit of a background in statistics. And then I also did an introduction to neuroscience course because in your bachelor's, you don't get that much of an exposure to neuroscience. So these were the three certification courses that I did, and all of them were given by either IIT Kanpur or IIT Gandhinagar. And then these were all online courses. I just had to give an exam at the end of the 3 weeks. And I also did two internships at one was at ISER Kolkata, because I'm from Kolkata. I did an ISER Kolkata internship for, I think, 3 weeks. And then I also did an internship at the medical college in Kolkata, so the Calcutta National Medical College. And there it was more of a biology-based internship. So I did some cellular biology things and some statistical analysis of the data. And all of these internships were also around 1 month long. And um, you have to make sure to put that on your CV and that it looks good that you've had experience apart from your bachelor's. But it's very important to build up your CV while you're doing your bachelor's.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Actually, as you mentioned, like when you started your career, you were at least uh, exploring so many things. And so my next question would be like, were there someone who were guiding you to go for these courses or take some internships? Because I know most of the students in their colleges, they don't go for this. Maybe they don't know, or sometimes they don't have kind of connections, like where to start, they don't know. And also someone, maybe they are not suggesting them. So was there someone for you to guide you, or you did it yourself?
For
Because
me, it was just Googling everything. Honestly,
oh,
I just started off with what are the requirements for doing masters in psychology in Germany. And then
mhm.
you would have people uploading CVs of what they have done. And I backtracked from there and saw what are the things in their CV that I could do where I am from right now. That was the first step. And also, at your universities, when you're doing your bachelor's, you will always have these posters at your university that advertise different courses that different places are holding. So that's how I found out about these certification courses. A lot of my seniors from during my bachelor's were also doing these certification courses, so I heard from them. So I think it's very important that you do a bit of networking, as they like to call it. It's not the same networking as you do in your corporate fields maybe, but it's the networking that you get more information from people who have been in your position before. So your seniors from your bachelors or your teachers from the bachelors, I think they know a lot, and you have to approach them, you have to talk to them, and you have to tell them that this is something that I'm interested in. What can I do to make it better? And most of the times they're very helpful, and they're very happy that you're interested as well. So yeah, I think mostly for me it was Googling, and also just talking to seniors and teachers, asking for their suggestions. Even in your bachelor's, you have different subjects for during your different semesters. So you
Yeah.
study all of these topics, and then you just think of one topic that you really like studying, and then you think, okay, this might be something I might do later on. And yeah, that's how you start to build up a little interest, and then you dig further into it. And yeah, that's how you develop, I think, a little field of interest later on.
And do you know someone or maybe in your network who had psychology in their background, but psychology arts? In
Yeah,
psychology, there are two:
BA,
psychology
BA
arts, BA
psychology.
psychology.
Yes.
And from there, they are moving into this neuroscience or this kind of sides. Or is it possible?
Yeah, and it's much more recommended,
Oh,
I think.
really? Okay.
Yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course, coming from a biology background, I had to spend double the time to get at the same level as all the psychology bachelor students are, because they learn about a lot of these development of psychology in humans, and that is a part which I never studied during my bachelor's,
Mm-hmm.
or also during my master's, for a good chunk of my master's. So that is something I had to do background research on my own, and it takes some time, of course. But there were a lot of BA psychology students who were studying in a course that would lead them to be a clinical psychologist or a therapist, for example. But they do
Mm-hmm.
learn about psychology, which is essential to study experimental psychology later on. So it is definitely recommended that if you think that psychology is interesting for you for the next 3 years or 4 years, then definitely go for psychology, because that will give you a much better, I think, a one up over the biology students if you want to go into the PhD that I am currently doing.
After 10th, they are taking humanities.
Hmm.
And after that, they are going for uh, like BA psychology. And from there, they are moving into science subject. Can you
Hmm.
imagine this transition, like this transition? Because in India, if you say, okay, you do your plus two in humanities, and then you can do your PhD or masters in science, everyone says you are a fool. But there is a possibility, because
Yeah.
these are the small things. Sometimes even I wonder, like there are so many possibilities, just we don't know. And
And
thank you so
also
much.
at universities, I think nowadays they're also aware of this, that students like to switch fields a lot. And that's why where I'm from, the BA psychology students also attended maths courses
Mhm.
and statistics courses, so that they were prepared to go into a science field if they wanted to later on. So I think that's very nice of universities to have that channel open for students if they want to switch.
Uh, yeah, that's a really good information, because some people who are not at all interested in calculus, I know at least in your field, calculus is not at all required. But someone interested in biology or maybe some other subjects or related to this, they need not to do
Yeah,
calculus at all,
exactly.
and they can really reach somewhere as you are today or better than this. The infrastructure that you get in Germany or in other countries, I think they are far ahead of what people usually get in India. If you are really interested in some topic, you can approach the professor, like, I'm really interested in this topic and I want to do my PhD in this, and they will actually be very happy just getting to know, like, you have some topic with you. And what about, so if I ask you about the, like, career opportunities that one can have
Mhm.
from this domain, like neuroscience, psychology, and in this
Yeah.
domain, what are the different career opportunities?
So in India, for example, you can always go into academics. And so after you do your bachelor's, you do a master's, and then you get a JRF, or a
Senior research fellow. Yeah.
junior research fellow at the universities, which is what a lot of my friends from my bachelor's have been doing. And that's a great opportunity if you want to do a PhD abroad, but you're not sure if you want to already move for your master's. I think that's a very nice transition of because JRF is very solely research based, and you can join a group and then you work on a certain project and you can have your publications as a JRF. So that also helps you build up your CV. After JRF, and then you can apply for NET, for which that's what I think you do before you get a PhD. And with your NEET scores, you can then apply for a professorship or like an associate professorship at any government university or a private university. But I come from a government university, so that's sort of the idea that I have. Um, and then if you move abroad, you can also again work in, so from a field of psychology, there's two different lanes. First would be academia. So you are staying in research entirely. So you do your master's and then you do a PhD, you do one postdoc or two postdocs, depending on how good your research is. And if you want to get more publications, because every time you join one project, you can expect to get one or two papers out of it. So, and you have to build up your publications to have a very prestigious position at a research institute. So research, and then you postdoc, and then you apply for a professorship, or you you become a leader of a research group. Another lane would be to go into industry. Now, for psychology, earlier the industry used to be very limited because you would only have the chance of going into therapy. But now you have a lot of companies and startups that are really investing on psychology graduates because they know how the brain works. And that is very important to, they want to develop some um, therapy measures that someone can do at home because people don't have time. So there are different startups that are coming up in Germany and also in India that are working on hiring these psychology graduates for different development of different methods. So that's a very nice field that you can go to, where it's not as difficult as being in research, because in research you don't have a very set 9 to 5 work. But in these kind of technical industries, you might have a more stable work time and much better pay than in research as well. Um, but yeah, and I think those are the two main lines that you can go to. If you are a biology student, then you can also go into the pharma companies, so the pharmacology companies that go into building drugs, that go into cancer research. They test a lot of different antibiotics and drugs and medicines coming into the market. So that is a very good another field that you can go to. If you are interested, so you go into psychology and then you realize that you like the methods more than the topics that you're working on, because that happens a lot with people, where you start to get a hang of the technicalities, but now you're not that interested in the research topics anymore. And then you can go into these big companies like Siemens or Philips, or there's another EEG
Gene,
company called,
Gene,
yeah, and
General
then
Electric. Yeah.
there's Brain Vision, which does a lot of EEG and eye tracking equipment. You can join these because they also hire psychology graduates, because they know that psychology people have used our product, so they can help us develop it better. So there's a lot of different markets for psychology graduates and neuroscience graduates that you can opt for. And I think a very good way of looking for these jobs is LinkedIn. There's Indeed. There's a lot of newsletters that all of these industries come out with every year. Twitter is also very helpful for job hunting. So if after a master's you think that you want a little break and you don't want to again go into research, you can also join one of these industries for 1 or 2 years to get an experience of how it can be. And you can always fall back on research, because um, we have a lot of people who are postdocs and they are 40, 50 years old. They've spent a lot of time in industry, but now they don't like it anymore, so they want to switch back. So it's very common in Germany, and it's not looked down upon at all if you make a switch in career later on in life. So
So being in Germany, and it's completely like non-technical, I won't say, but non-engineering, I'll say. Like in a non-engineering subject, did you feel like there is a need of German language proficiency or something like that?
I think for me it was different because I did a master's which was entirely in English. So it
Hmm.
was called an international masters because they were focused on getting half and half of German students and international students. So all of my courses were in English. My thesis, I also had to write in English. It was compulsory to write in English. And they even required an IELTS certificate to see that your English is sufficient. And if you are at an international university, then within the university, and if it's an university town like mine is, you most of the places can already speak English. So it's not like you need English to live and that you will not be able to survive at all. But I would highly suggest that please learn German and join German classes as soon as you come here, because it's much easier to integrate into the society.
And just one thing I just want to mention, because I have seen so many master's student in India and they are applying for PhD and they are getting rejected.
Mhm.
And uh, the main reason is that the thesis topic they are choosing is not up to the mark, or the research question they are trying to solve, they are not up to the mark. So sometimes it may happen, even if you are masters, you need to pursue another masters in Germany. And I know so many people who are actually pursuing their second masters in Germany, and then probably they are going into industry or maybe going for
Mhm.
PhD. I think this is very common, at least what I have seen. So
Mhm.
my recommendation would be, after bachelor, try to do masters in Germany, because if you pursue your masters in Germany, then if you want to go to industry, then directly you can go do that. Or if you want to be in research, because your grade or degree is valid in internationally, I guess. So that will be really really helpful for you.
That is something that my internship supervisor from ISER Kolkata, he told me that if you are interested in studying abroad, then move as soon as you can. You can do as much research as you want, but if you the education system in India is not very suited with the German requirements. And
Specifically research type, I'll say, even the
yeah.
research, yeah, the research culture and
Mhm.
then quality of research, they are
Yeah.
not up to the mark. So if they are doing from IITs, I know in IITs they have good funding, their research quality is good, then they can directly come for PhD after masters. But if you're doing from average university or
Mhm.
any other universities or other colleges, then
Mm.
the infrastructure is not that good.
Yeah.
And so uh, your research or your master thesis won't be evaluated in the same manner how it's evaluated here with the
Yeah.
German universities. So that's the main problem, I guess.
Yeah. Because I graduated from CU, which is a regular, government university who is known for not giving marks, which is, I think, the same for all state universities. For my bachelor's, I got a 70%, which is nothing for a German university, but it's a big deal for somebody who's graduated from CU. So I knew that it would be something like that. And that's why I had to do things on the side to build up. So yeah, I just knew that I'll have to work extra hard. But I think if you've graduated from ISER or IIT or IIM, then I think it's not that difficult.
What kind of skills and qualities you think like a student should have to pursue a career in psychology or in neuroscience research? Soft skills, you can say, also technical skills, both you can say.
I would say that if you want to, in general, go into academia, in today's day and age, it's very important that even if you do not like maths, please get a bit of a foundation in maths. I think even if you have avoided it a lot during your school, maybe do a little side course on statistics, even because no matter which field you go into, statistics will always be there for research, because you can always collect data, but how do you present it to the audience to explain what you have found out? And that's where statistics comes in. So I think it's very important, if you want to go into academia or research, to get a bit of a foundation in mathematics. And by maths, I don't mean calculus, I don't mean trigonometry, I mean statistics and application based maths. I think that is important. um, Other than that, if you also want to go into research, I would suggest practicing your English a little bit, to be able to speak to academicians, to speak to your teachers, because, of course, you might not come into Germany. You might go to the Netherlands or France or Belgium to study. So the third language that you learn, it depends on where you're going to. But I think if you have a somewhat strong base in English, you can still communicate with others very well. So that would be nice to build up, is a skill of English, to be able to speak. And of course, in India, you don't get that much of experience unless you go to an English medium college or English medium school. But you can get multiple courses on the side where you can just practice spoken English. I think that is very important. And also another thing, so these would be, maths and English are two things that I think are technically important, because everything else you can learn. You will get enough time to learn how to work on a computer, how to learn Excel, or different types of technical skills anybody can learn in a couple of months, or any programming language. If you can learn from class 12, or if you learn it from your bachelor's, it's up to you how long it takes. But a programming language always helps. But maths and English are the two things that takes time to be strong at, but it's very useful till the end. um, and in terms of soft skill, I would just say hard work. It That doesn't change. Even if you're in India or in Germany, it does not change that you have to work really, really hard. And you have to, there's always a pressure of international students here to prove themselves, because they are not from here, and there's a reason they are here, and they have to prove that, which is not what they expect of you, but this is something that just will come from you. And that's something that you will have to always work towards. But hard work pays off very fast and very easily here. If you're working hard, automatically your grades are better, automatically you get better connections, and then you can uh, speak to others about your research. And then yeah, and then it really helps to just work hard and be determined. Is Sorry, somebody wrote a message
Yep.
in the group. Is completing a PhD must in the psychology field? Not at all. I think it depends on what you're interested in. PhD is essential if you want to stay in research. If you want to continue doing research, whether in Germany or like anywhere in Europe or USA, Canada, UK, or if you want to do it in India, I think PhD is necessary only if you want to become a professor of that subject. If you want to teach in a college, for example, then a PhD would be necessary. But if you want to go into the industry, you don't need to do a PhD at all. A lot of my friends who went into the industry are master's graduates, and now they have a perfectly normal, perfectly well paid, well insured job, and a PhD is not necessary for that. So again, it depends on what you want to do in the end.
Yeah, exactly. And in Germany, actually, if you have a PhD, you are kind of well respected, I feel. Maybe one more question, like how is your work-life balance? How your day starts and the ends? Because you just mentioned like you are working maybe a couple of hours at the lab. So is it some time like you are working until midnight or something? I know in Germany it doesn't happen much, but still, like how is your work-life balance?
um, the work-life balance is what I think is something you can decide. In Germany, that's also something. For me, I choose to finish my data collection by the end of this year. I started in July last year, and I want to finish it within 1.5 years of starting my PhD. That was something that I wanted to do, because that leaves me with 1 year of analysis of my data and 1 year of writing my thesis. So that's how me and my supervisor sort of decided and planned on it. And that's why I have to work a bit harder than maybe other students have to, because it's a bit faster of a pace. But still, I think I managed to go to the lab at around 10 a.m., 9 or 10 a.m., depending on when my experiment will start. And I'm at the lab. I get a lunch break always of about 1 hour in the middle. And then I come back home around 6 or 7. Um, in general, in Germany, it goes without saying that you will have a 40-hour work week. So you will have 5 days of 8 hours of work. Even for an industry job where you don't have to go to a lab like that, you still have a 8 hours work day. And here as well, at the university, people try to maintain the same thing. Sometimes you might have to go to the lab at 8 in the morning, but that happens like 2 times a month or so. Um, it's not that how do I say, too long of a work day, but it can happen sometimes. But in general, I have a 40-hour work week, and I think that's very sustainable. And also in Germany, they really discourage working on weekends. So you don't, on the weekends, you can go on weekend trips to meet friends, or you can go just a little trip to a close by city or a lake or something. So just to recharge for the next week. So yeah, I think for me, it's a good work-life balance.
During your masters, like how was it and how is now? If you make a comparison.
So I think the very distinct difference between PhD and masters is that for my PhD, I don't have to study. Whereas for my master's, I used to have to study, and studying, it happens on your free time. So for your master's, like I would have 3 or 4 classes a week. So it's not like you have 5 classes all days of the week, but you have 3 classes, and then you have 1 or 2 seminars in the afternoon, and that's it. So you have a lot of free time during your master's, but then that free time you spend studying for your exams. So each module used to have one exam, and we would have oral exams. So it's not like you can mug up like definition, and then that's something that will come for the exam. But we had oral exams, so that needed some a bit more consistent studying, because I mean, you can't, the kind of subjects we had, you couldn't finish within like 1 month of intense studying like I would do for in my bachelor's. So it would have, you would have to constantly study over the weeks. But yeah, during my master's, I think I spent my free time more studying. And when you're writing your thesis, I think it's a bit more intense. You tend to also work during the weekends. I would spend 2 3 hours on a Saturday or Sunday also just writing down my introduction or discussion or something. But that thesis writing takes about 2 months max of intense writing. So yeah, during the thesis, it would be a bit more stressful, I think. But during the other semesters, it's just studying for exams, and that's it.
One thing I would like to share, most of the students who are pursuing their bachelor's or so, they're scared of thinking, no, if I want to pursue my master's in US, Germany, or anywhere, it's really difficult process. Actually, the process is not the difficult. You just need to know. Like for Germany, you just need kind of recommendation letter
Mhm.
from the professor, and then you need the transcript from the university. Then you need to write IELTS, but it's not mandatory, because if your university is teaching everything in English, then from university you can make sure like you have like the course was taught English taught program, so you need not to write IELTS also. And then you apply via UniAssist or directly to the university. And then once you get selected, there could be interview, and there, like, it depends. So in some university there is interview, and in some there isn't. Then once you get selected, then applying for the block account and the visa, and then it's done. So it's not that intense process, but mostly people are, I guess, kind of scared of, oh no, what to do, when, where to start. But it's really easy if you're really interested. I'll be always happy to help with the process, how to do it.
Yeah, I
And
think the best way to go for this is contact somebody who's already studying in Germany. And I think Mustafa, that would be like a very good help for you in there, where somebody who has gone through the process can help you go through each step so that you don't miss one step and then you have to come back and, it just wastes time. So yeah, I think everything is very well documented, and it is a process which a lot of people are doing in the same way. So
exactly,
it is fairly easy, just needs some planning. That's all.
because this process is time taking, then you need to write that a letter of motivation.
Mm.
And here in Germany, they look into this very seriously.
Yeah,
Like, you need to mention, okay, you want to do XYZ course, then why you want to do this, or why you want to pursue specific this course. So how well you are writing your motivation? No, I want to know specifically these things, and I'm really interested into that part. And this is, I think, one of the most important factor for your
definitely.
selection.
Yeah. And I just wanted to also say that
Yeah.
the motivation letter that you send to universities, you can have a general template for motivation letters, but you have to make it individualistic for different universities. And I think that's very important because universities can also, because there is somebody who is reading those letters and seeing if you should come into this university or not. And if they see that you haven't even mentioned the university's name, for example, or if you haven't mentioned the program's name, then they know that you've sent the same letter to another 5 universities. So that is something that you have to pay a lot of attention to and make it as individual as possible, as well as have it as of a general template as possible. That's
And
something
also,
very important.
yeah, and also I remember, like, before sending this motivation letter, I looked into some of the professors' profile and what they are doing, and then mentioned that whether you are also interested in such kind of research or not. I think that is also really important mentioning in the motivation letter. Once you are coming here for masters or bachelor or any other program, then you are allowed to do a part-time job. So some people who do at the university, some people who do
Yeah.
at the industry, some people who do like maybe kind of informal jobs, so at
Mhm.
restaurants or anywhere else, so
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. So how was your journey in getting a part-time job here during your masters?
So when I came in, I was already looking for part-time jobs when I was in India. I already got the admit letter and I was sure that I'm going to this university, but I didn't get anything then. But I came here, and then when I went to the international office, I asked them, do you know how I can apply for HEWIs, as they like to call it, or student jobs? And then they told me that they gave me a list of people that I can contact for student jobs. And that was just local industries, but also a lot of these, delivery services. They hire a lot of students part time.
Hmm.
They pay a normal minimum wage that will, hold up your rent, for example. A lot of that, and a lot of these university labs that are looking for technicians. So you don't have to be experienced, but you just have to, make sure all the technical stuff are in place and everything. So they give me a big list. And my first job was at the international office. I was working with, like, making phone calls and giving connections to other students who are coming in. I did that job for 6 months. And then I did a little certification course where I could become a technician at the MRI. So then I became a technician at the MRI at the clinic of the university. And there I was there for the rest of my time. So I was there for 1.5 years. And then I fell in love with it so much that I did my master thesis there as well. And yeah, so sometimes you do a hivi and then you just enjoy the place so much that you just want to be there. So yeah, and I think it's very nice because these student jobs are not a lot of money that you have to pay a lot of taxes for it, but it's just enough to fit up your rent and your groceries and the regular lifestyle that a normal Indian lives. So I think student jobs are very useful for people like us who are, also studying on the side, so we can't spend too much time on the job, but yeah, gives us enough money to give our rent and groceries and stuff.
And also I think this is really good to mention, like the one you did with the MRI certification and then working there, actually these things counted when you go for your
Yeah.
maybe job or maybe for PhD, because the things you are learning, it's never wasted.
My job as a technician was not even at the, the fancy computer and you see the images and all. My job was just having a patient come in and putting them on the MRI bed and put in the head coils and stuff. So I was
Okay.
a very
Hmm.
basic technician. It wasn't even very fancy.
Hmm.
But I had a safety certificate is what I needed. And
Hmm.
then I had to, learn at the computer to how to do the imaging stuff. So it was a very
Okay.
slow build up, but I started off as like a very entry level, putting the padding, putting the head coil. So a very normal
Hmm.
technician job. So it wasn't fancy at all. I have
Okay.
two student assistants who are with my study all the time. So now I am behind the computer. So I'm setting up the sequences. I'm looking at the
Mhm.
image.
Thank you so much, Shiny, for joining, and thank you so much for sharing all your valuable experiences.
Thank you.